Hi, everybody. It's T. Falcon Napier. Welcome to the Circle of Brilliance. Today, we're going to pick up on a call we did some time ago about business chemistry. If you guys remember this model that Chris had pointed our way, basically, it's another quadrant-based kind of model with some other things going on around it. And we did end up figuring out how you would have to rotate it and position it in order for it to overlay on the change grid. And we did determine that because this whole business chemistry thing is all about productivity, output, your behavior at work, we theorized that it would overlay on the outgrid quadrant. So instead of being a model that's going, edge to edge, corner to corner, covering the entire change grid, sometimes models are much more, purpose driven. And based on whatever that purpose happens to be, the model could, could overlay on just a subset of the change grid's actual full area. Is that okay with everybody? Is that confusing, or can you kind of go like, not everybody's model is wall to wall, floor to ceiling?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this particular one, we did figure out that we would need to rotate it a little bit. I believe we needed to rotate it 90 degrees clockwise, so that the pioneer would be where the driver is, and the driver would be where the guardian is. Is that what we decided we needed to do, or did we also have to flip it just a jiffy? So no, pioneer, and then guardian would be down here. Nope, this is absolutely correct. So if we rotate the model 90 degrees clockwise, that would end up putting pioneer where driver is, driver where pioneer is. And so that's in kind of a different little section. Technically, the pioneer would really be more about the expressive driver, the driven expressive driver. And their idea of a driver is a bit more downgrid, that whole commander kind of thing. And another part of it was scientist. And so obviously, if you're going to label anyone's thoughts, behaviors, et cetera, with a word like scientist, we're going to see if it's going to land where: upgrid, outgrid, downgrid, ingrid. Where's analytical?
Downgrade.
Downgrade. And so so it all makes sense when we did this little rotation. We left this discussion with me basically saying to Chris, well, I would love to see what the report looks like, so we could really, see if that adds anything to our exploration of the model, et cetera, et cetera. And lo and behold, he sends over a report. And so what I'd like to do today is share with you guys what this report is including. And I thought I would go ahead and chat this over to everybody. It's a little PDF file. So there, you should all have it now if you want to download
So
it.
this is Deloitte's model. Is
From
that
what
where
I
this is from?
understand, it's Deloitte's model. I don't think,
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. Looks
yeah.
like
The thing is that I know Deloitte well enough to know that Deloitte is not in the business of creating models. I think they're in the business of finding models and integrating models and selling models. But this is the first time I've ever seen them actually create one out of scratch. So,
Right. So this would not be like one of those kinds of the research base that they, validated some study or something like that
oh,
based on it.
they might have. If we find this interesting, we can certainly go deeper. As it turns out, Chris is going to go ahead and get certified in this model later on this summer. And so when that happens, we can hit him with a whole bunch of questions like,
Ah,
has this really been tested, et cetera. You guys know I don't put a whole lot of what I would say, final decision making in the world of whatever their research shows. To me, it either makes sense or it doesn't. And
mhm.
it overlays on the change grid if it makes sense. If it doesn't overlay on the change grid, then we've really got to look carefully at what's going on here. So I think I'm more interested in, what do they call it? Face validity, surface validity. Does it seem to make sense? And we did decide, yes, lo and behold, it does seem to make sense. So let's go ahead and do this. I don't know if Chris added that. I don't think he did, because I have the top of the line Adobe Acrobat software, which enables me to edit any PDF, and I can't get rid of that. So I
Mm.
think it's really somehow really etched into this. So shall we just kind of do a little scroll through and see what's going on and then come back and see what it's really telling us? So the front of the report is basically giving you some groundwork in what these different patterns are. Now, just to be what do we say, clear about what they're trying to accomplish. They're saying that chemistry is hard to define, yet impossible to ignore, elixir of great relationships and effective group dynamics. Okay, I think that's yeah, no. While relationship chemistry is often described in poetic and almost mystical terms, there's actually a great deal of hard science that lies beneath it. Designed for use in a business context, so right there, that moves it out grid. Business chemistry is a system developed by researchers from the fields of neuroanthropology and genetics that draws upon the latest biological research and statistical analysis technology. Did that mean anything to any of you, or is that just a whole lot of really nice words that
That's
it's
a
all
word salad in
yeah,
like
it's word salad. I don't really know. In contrast to many other behavioral systems, business chemistry explicitly focuses on observable, business relevant characteristics and their implications within a business setting. Okay, that I can say. All right, good. Now I know where you're really talking about. So the science reveals 4 dominant patterns, each with a constellation of traits. They're mixing their metaphor big time. We have elixir, chemistry, and now we have constellation. So pulling some astrophysicists into the whole model development, I can make peace with that as a sci-fi nerd. Okay, each with a constellation of traits that are statistically correlated with one another. Most people naturally exhibit behaviors and preferences that strongly align with one or sometimes 2 of these patterns. We call these patterns the pioneer, the driver, the integrator, and the guardian. Okay, and so again, they're going to tell us a little bit about each one of those. We'll revisit that shortly. And it says that as far as whoever this person was, I don't know if this is Chris or if this is just an example he was able to have sent his way, but you're most closely aligned with the pioneer pattern. So we've seen these kinds of things where it says, based on how you compare to the whole population. I wonder if they can also do this thing within a company, define the company as a sub-constellation and see how you might stack up against your coworkers. That would be interesting if they have that capability. But mostly pioneer and driver. I think that those two seem to be put together rather well. And again, if we go back to our change grid for just a second, I can tell you, where am I at? Did I just close that? How rude. Just a second. Man can't talk and type at the same time. All right. So, oh, wait, where'd you go? Come back. Okay, so they're saying you're pioneer and driver and pretty much equal. Well, if you were equal parts pioneer and driver, can you kind of feel that your energetic essence is going to be in the blend of those two? You guys with me on that? More than one can unmute and chime in just so I feel like I'm connecting. But that's all right, Brian. They've basically elected you to be the voice of the crowd. So that would make sense, saying that, well, you put those two things together and you end up with this commander kind of energy, and you'll see where scientist comes into it. So what they're saying so far resonates. We would expect that person to be living in this particular subquadrant. We can only hope it would be the amiable, driven driver. Up here to this would be the driven, expressive driver. Down here would be the driven, analytical driver. So that's the kind of energies we really are looking for. Hopefully that's not too much for us to kind of juggle around. When it comes to integrator and guardian, well, now they're less than half of what the general population would be. So again, these are your percentiles relative to the business population. Okay, fine. And then they're telling you your actual, no, they just did that. Did they? Oh, no, this is you personally. You're 34% pioneer. You are 31% driver, 16% guardian, 19% integrator. So if we add those up, we get to our 50% or our 100% that we're looking for. Now, this is interesting. They're saying based on this blend, your defining traits are that you're spontaneous, exacting, even-keeled, punctual. How many of you are kind of going like, a lot of those are more the analytical energy speaking.
Yep.
I promise you, an expressive driver, they might be punctual, but remember the thing we did where we said, you look at the four main energies, and I said, one of these energies will always be exactly on time. One of them will arrive early for the meeting. One of them believes the meeting starts when they get there, and the other one is always late, or, meeting, was there a meeting? They kind of forget. Well, the expressive energy has a tendency to lose track of things because they're always in the moment. And so they're more likely to be late or forget that there was a meeting. Where we go to the driver energy, our definition of the true driver energy believes the meeting starts when they get there.
Mm.
So everyone else, you can all wait. None of you matter. You're peons. And so when I look at a lot of these things like dutiful, logical, meticulous, these are most definitely more down-grid traits. So it'd be the southern part of the driver. So let's rewind for a second and see, how are they defining driver? So they're saying a driver loves a challenge. Okay, that's outgrid energy. They value competence. Okay, that's an outgrid energy as well, wanting to be surrounded by people who are capable of doing these. But look at this, and particularly enjoy a sharp mind or a sharp wit. Now, if they're saying they're enjoying that in other people, then I think that for you to appreciate that someone has a sharp mind or a sharp wit, what energy is that really summoning for you to make that assessment?
A sharp mind, sharp wit.
Yeah, you're saying, yeah, you're someone who enjoys someone with a sharp mind, enjoys someone with a sharp wit. That means you have to have done some assessment, at least instantaneously in the moment, that said, this person has a sharp mind and or a sharp wit.
So
So
that's analytical.
Analytical.
yeah, there's an analytical energy that's coming into play here. Now you come down, they're saying that drivers tend to be quantitative. Again, I'm hearing more of an analytical driver to a driven analytical kind of thing, a little bit more downgrade. By the way, that's all resonates perfectly with the rotation that we performed as we did this. They're saying that the commander part of them is very focused and competitive. Did you feel the energy go upgrade a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Those two, that's a little bit more, the test is afoot, the game is in play, this is the test is really going on. So you got to be focused, you got to be competitive. That's that commander energy that would be more of the what do we say, the analytical driven driver, or maybe even some driven driver energy going in there. But then they're saying you're also you have the scientist energy, means you're more experimental and deeply curious. Doesn't that feel a little bit more on the analytical lean of things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, when they blended these two together, they said what the pioneer and the driver share. Let me go to a different diagram for you. We'll go to this one. What the pioneer and the driver share, forget that it's upgraded. It would actually be 90 degrees rotated. So this would be outgrid. They're saying that their shared traits is that they embrace risk, definitely a driven driver energy. They decide quickly, very driven driver. They brush off mistakes, very driven driver. They call the shots, extremely driven driver. And
Right.
they like to try things out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's it, because they are risk oriented, they are willing to gamble, they are willing to take a chance. So if you are looking at what they're saying driver is and going like, that's not what we call driver. What we call driver would be this set of shared traits. What they're calling a driver is halfway between driver, and analytical energy.
T,
Yes.
that kind of sounds like an really
Yep.
out-grid driver, almost next to the danger zone.
Well, and it could very well be. So when we overlaid it and put it out here, oh, what the heck did I just do? All right, well, that was not smart. Oh, well, we'll figure it out. No, that's not what I want to have shrink. I want, no. Here, just fit already. Undo, undo, undo. Yeah, all right, fine. So you can see based on this rotation, I'm going to make it a little bit, no, I don't need it to go giant. We say the pioneer, again, it's all outgrid. Everything is going to overlay outgrid. So that pioneer energy is really that edge between the expressive driver and the driven driver. More specifically, it would be the driven expressive driver right here, a lot of driven driver stuff, and even down here, a bit of the driven analytical driver. So are you guys, can you make your peace with what I've just rattled off? So
Yeah, it seems like to me this
right.
is describing an attempt to describe living systems and what happens within living systems, like the parts and how they fit into that. But it seems to, at least at first glance, you know, when you talk about prescriptive, predictive, and descriptive, something's missing for me. Like I'm not.
Yeah. There is, you know, so far I'll say, you know, this is the merging of brilliance. We're the circle of brilliance. We have to constantly be searching for and one way or another, determining whether or not we feel the model belongs in the category of brilliance. If you think it has some brilliance to it, then it's well worth integrating. And I, for one, you guys can weigh in. I think that based on what we've seen so far, that there is some brilliance here that is worth exploring, but we understand things in a very different way than who these model makers understood, because, you know, right away, the first thing we said was based on their description of how it applies and what it reveals. They're talking about people interacting in a business setting. So right there, we know it overlays on the outgrid quadrant. Yep, everyone aligned with that? Yep.
Yeah, the neuroanthropology underscores, or at least indicates, that they're talking about, at least from my perspective, some kind of behavioral dynamics in that, right?
Yep, and that's what they said about behavioral characteristics, things like that. They also mentioned something about how people might function on a team or in a group. And I think that that's all happened, but all happens in this outgrid quadrant. If we're looking at the grand change grid of life. Now, to Linda's point, she said a lot of these things sound like they could be in the outgrid danger zone, and most definitely they could be. So we know that where we want this great performance to happen here, they need to be on or inside of this vertical red line. So as long as amiable,
that's what I just thought, they were pushing that barrier with those words.
They do. And so far, as we've scrolled through this, they haven't talked about the dark side of any of these energies. So,
and if this is in a business setting, isn't every single quadrant in the business setting? It's not just this quadrant.
No. It depends on how it is. For example, in a business setting, I could very well have a whole lot of people that are very far upgrid. Because, you know, based on whatever the situation happens to be.
Right.
And I could have people that are very far down grid, and I probably have a lot more of those than I have the people that are up grid. They're saying if what you want to do is build and operate a really successful business team, this is where they need to be on the change grid. This is how those energies would interact. So based on their frame they're putting around this, we have to say they're not talking about the people who have no perceived ability and yet think the challenge is impossible. They may be those people inside of the organization, but their tool is not testing for that.
Okay.
Their tool is only saying, if we want to have this perfectly functioning kind of thing out here in business world where people are engaged, remember this band right here, this is the engagement ring, this is strong intention. I need for them to be on the team. And on the team means they forget just having an intention. They've moved into some sort of execution. They're behaving in ways that move things forward. So that's why, from when we went over this in that last time around, we did kind of go, if their goal is talking about the most positive outcome that each of these energies can bring to a business setting, then this is where those energies would need to overlay, would need to reside on the change grid. Thoughts about that? More thoughts about that?
I wonder what context would different how this play out in different industries. You know what I mean? Like if you
Well,
have these kind of routine kinds of positions,
yeah,
right?
right.
So that they would be more downgrid than there, I would
Yeah.
think.
Well, and let's talk about it's not so much. Don't try to think about a different industry, because the moment you say it's an industry, I'm hearing you saying it's some sort of an organization. It's got a business. It has some outcomes it's going for. It's all going. Whatever label you give it, it's going. We want it to be outgrid when it comes to its optimal operation in these terms. However, if we look at other areas inside of any kind of a business, I don't know that we're going to find people plotting here. And it may not even be that I need them to be plotting here, depending on what team they're on. So, for example, let's talk about research and development. So, research and development may have some of these energies, but research and development tends to live where on the change grid? If you've got a really good research and development department, where do you think energetically they're going to live on the change grid?
Where the scientist and driver is.
So I'm going to say the leader of the team might be up here, but where do you think that department is?
Oh, as a whole, the department.
The department, the energy of research and development in most organizations tends to be where?
They're
Downgrade.
Downgrade.
analytical.
Right. It's an analytical, knowledge base kind of thing. They see there's some sort of challenge. Now, while we've got that department that really could function very, very well further down grid, if I moved them up to here, I don't know that I would really get better performance out of them. That would be interesting to explore.
Right.
So,
right.
because they're sacrificing their analytical primary energy for a driver primary energy. And that may mean that they're too much in a hurry to win the competition as opposed to produce the absolute best products they possibly can. So,
Right.
I don't know that any of us are actually privy to what goes on in a company like Apple. But if I said to you, how many years ahead do you think their research and development department is thinking?
Oh yeah, they're way ahead.
They're way ahead. Now,
They create co-created community. So
right. And mind you, of course, they're in a technology-driven company, so they don't have the luxury of decades of development. They'd have to really be someone who has a vision for that far down the road. But the speed at which technology changes is terrifying. So I would still say they're going to be relatively downgrade, but maybe if you want to stay that front line, we need to have a little bit more driver energy, at least in the people that are driving that research and development kind of ship. Let me give you another scenario. Let's say that a new product has just been released, been rolled out, and it blows up. And I mean blows up in a negative way. Tons of problems, lots of glitches. It's got security issues, performance issues. It's gobbling up your battery life, on and on and on. Now, the moment people become aware of that, where are they on the change grid?
they're
Upgrade.
upgrade.
People inside of the company are likely to be upgrade initially. I believe a lot of swear words are going to be used, and people are going to be calling anybody and their brother looking for an explanation. How did this happen? Blah, blah, blah. But what do we know happens to productivity when people are too far upgrade?
It's very low.
Non-existent.
It's not existent. It's going
Yeah, I was just going to say,
Yeah, exactly. Lots of activity, but activity and productivity are dramatically different things. And so we know y'all need to calm down to be able to fix this. And maybe that's where I need to get a little bit more of this upgrade driver energy. Work together as a team. Let's integrate whatever, let's pioneer, let's figure out blah, 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 blah. Do that. But ultimately, I have to know that as hard as I'm pushing for this, can I stand over the shoulders of the people that are writing the code?
No,
Loom over them and expect
no.
performance? No. So I just have to say, we've got good people on it. Leave them alone. Let them do what they do. They know that there's a big deadline. They know there's a problem, but I can't afford to move them upgrade, because what do you think caused this problem that I'm dealing with now to begin with?
Maybe somebody pushed them up grid.
Maybe people were too far upgraded. They were being very, what do I say? I don't want to say negligent, because I don't think they intended to be negligent. I think they just kind of missed a whole bunch of stuff.
They're being mindless.
You're right. They're in a hurry. They're not seeing everything. They're not paying attention to everything. So maybe, yeah, you get the idea. So now, Brian, to kind of finish your point, I guess I'm saying that not every area of an organization necessarily works best when it's too far out grid.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
some aspects of a business function better down grid, particularly
Right.
research, development, anything that's about formalizing things. So we talked about before, what's power apathy good for? It's good for building systems and processes and procedures and routines and, stabilizing things. So we've got a stronger foundation to grow upon. If we just keep growing, 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 and no one ever does this stabilization piece of the puzzle, what are we building on?
You go out of business.
We can go out of business because we're building things on sand. Sooner or later, something's going to collapse, and that could be the thing that drives us out of business one way or another. I can also think that if I am a manufacturing facility and I've got a whole army of people out there working on an assembly line, even though that assembly line may be state of the art and very high tech, like I told you guys, we've got a plant that's being finished over here that creates microchips. The thing is massive. You have no idea why they would need a 10-story building or a 15-story building to do this. And I'm talking to a gentleman who works on that project, who also happens to work out with my trainer. And I said, why is there what is it, 10, 12, 15 stories? He says, it's 150 feet tall. He goes, but it's only 4 stories. And we're like, what are you talking about? It's only 4 stories. And he was saying that they've got these giant vats that are 2 or 3 stories tall all by themselves. So it's going, so my point is that even though we're saying these are people who might be working in a factory on an assembly line, and it's all very high tech or whatever, they're still doing a job that is very routine, very predictable, and in today's world, probably extremely automated. Right? And so they're watching things, quality control, etc. I don't know that I need those people to be here out grid.
Right.
I need them to be a little bit more down grid. I don't want them to be disengaged, but
Pete,
yes.
I don't know if you guys already talked about this, but does this model have all the other 3 quadrants? Do they consider it?
So far, no. And
Okay.
that's okay, because their model is just about how do I get optimal productivity, team performance. What are they saying here? Effective group dynamics. What do they do? Business chemistry explicitly focuses on observable business relevant characteristics, on and on. So I think they really are just focusing on the outgrade quadrant.
So is that a mistake? I mean,
No, it's a wonderful thing. It's really, really a wonderful thing. Just like if we go back and look at flow, well, flow, forget describing a quadrant, flow is describing the heart line.
right.
That was it. But wow, the level of detail they went into exploring flow psychology and all that. It's like, thank you for all that. We can integrate that into our model. But again, I've said this on several occasions, our model provides a space for every possibility in the world of human attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, etc. So we cover the whole thing. We have a comprehensive model. Not everyone is out there trying to create comprehensive models. So they're just
Yeah.
trying to put together a model.
I
of
see.
themselves for
Okay, I
whatever
get
it
it.
is.
And I think that's what I was trying to explain is missing for me is the piece that like how do these come together? Like if you have an R&D, for instance, I'm on several like biotech firms and
Yeah.
it takes, time for some of that research to come out because you don't want to compromise quality. So a lot of times the R&D is on a different time frame than marketing or, some of these others. So they still have to work together as best they can,
Yeah.
but they're speaking different languages. And
Right.
so that's what this model didn't show me. So when I was looking at it, I said, okay, yeah, but everything isn't there. There's still other parts you have to account for. And it seemed like that was missing. That was just my
Yeah.
first
Well,
perception
and
of it.
let me say that as we look at this more and more, we might be saying, because he was talking about team. Do you think
Right.
he's talking about every single person in the organization needs to be profiled? Or are we saying, look, when it comes to the people that are running the deal, that are running this project, that are running this department or whatever it is, these are the elements that come into play.
Right.
We need them. But you know what? This guardian is probably going to be, what do I say, the commander of the full team of guardians inside the organization.
Right.
This
Right.
scientist might be the lead scientist, and there's a whole bunch of others.
Right.
This teamer has to help, an integrator have to pull in people who are, a little bit over challenged, under trained, whatever. Get them on board, get them ready to do what needs to be done. So I can see how each of these roles that we've laid out here would resonate with someone who's on a senior management or leadership team, but ultimately it does not represent the entire body of employees in the organization.
Right. So it kind of creates a network effect, basically.
Yeah,
That,
that's what I'm
yeah.
they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But let's go back to their report and figure out if we're just making a whole bunch of stuff up as we go along. If they're actually saying this. All right, so they're giving you a bunch of descriptors. They're telling you this is how you fit in with the rest of the world. The business population is built mostly of pioneers and drivers. There you are. Okay, fine. I get it. So that's me or whoever this happens to be, and it's giving me all these traits. Okay, fine. Now we go a little bit further. Your most extreme responses. So your answers were analyzed relative to a database of responses from other business professionals ranging from entry-level analysts to CEOs. Now, again, I would say that's great to compare me to a cross-industrial sort of pool, but what if I'm a big enough company? Can you just tell me how do I resonate with everybody inside of my company if they can't create a profile of you compared to your peers, you compared to your, people throughout your organization? They're missing an opportunity. Okay, so understand your most extreme responses. So here we go. You more strongly agree with these statements than this percentage of the business population. So people are often comment that I'm full of energy. They're saying that I'm in the 89th percentile. And this percentage, yeah, I more agree with it than 89% of the population. So I've got more energy than 89% of the population. Okay, over here, you more strongly disagree with these statements than this percentage of the population. So when I become interested in something, I have to know everything about it. Well, 95% of the population is not on board. They disagree less with that. Yeah. Get that? So yeah, 95% are going like, why are you so disagreeable about this? I consider myself to be an intellectual. Okay, well, 93% of the population. Wait, you're saying you disagree with this?
Disagree. You're right. So it sounds like they're
I disagree.
opposed to
Right, and they're saying 93%
learning.
of the population wants to be bright. Okay, so I think that's how this is all coming. Yeah, all right, fine. I'm stuck with double negatives. So I prefer meetings that have brainstorming sessions. They're saying I do not prefer that. I more strongly disagree with that than 87% of the population. That's what it's saying. I'm more logical. I disagree with that.
Interesting.
I disagree with that more than 81% of the population. Yeah, I would have to really sit down and let my head process all that. All right,
Does
so
Chris have a book out? Did Chris write a book on the possibilitarian?
yeah,
Did he?
Chris is the possibilitarian.
Right, but did he write that book or?
Oh, I'm sure he did. It's his.
I can see this working with that because there's a lot of possibilities that
Yeah,
come
I
out of
agree.
some of this
This side is a
data.
lot easier to understand, but if I was trying to explain this to an audience, even I'm stumbling, and I do think of myself as being a rather bright person, and I'm kind of going like, wait, what? So, I'd really have to pause and go like, let me make sure you all understand this, or we need to move on to something else. Oh yeah, we always have more slides in the stack than we're actually going to go.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. All you do.
Yep. So Tim just chatted over the business chemistry book. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Deloitte has trademarked that term, business chemistry.
I would imagine they did. I mean, if you're Deloitte and you didn't bother trademarking something like this, then someone needs to be taken in front of the board. Okay, so your primary pattern is pioneer. So you're somewhat aligned with a pioneer pattern, but you differ from most pioneers in that you're disciplined, traditional, and easily frustrated by people and things that waste your time. Well, those are going to be driver qualities, I promise you. And so here you are in between that. So how do I engage them? You mean, how do I engage a pioneer? So be lively and open to exploring ideas. Yes, hear them out. I would have written this, if this is my report, it's talking about me, this needs to speak to me. So how you like to be engaged,
Mhm.
how you get, you lose interest. So improve, anyway, likes variety. Pioneers report that they are most effective under stress. That would parallel with our map as well, because where they plot is where perceived challenge is very high, but perceived ability is still less than the perceived challenge, but better than halfway there. Words that woo pioneers. So if I want to flirt with you, then these are the words that I'll use. Okay, how they make decisions. And their extreme pioneer mottos: dream big, brainstorm often, carpe everything, why not, rules were made to be broken, challenge the status quo, have fun, it's just work. All right, so I have to say that a model that was going very serious for me and seemed to have a whole lot of value just became a little bit parlor gamey for my taste. Anyone? Doesn't this feel a little superficial?
It's very general.
Well, yeah, it's terrifically general, but
Yeah.
that's
So
what,
I'm not.
come on. So why is this good or bad? Or we'll see where it goes on. Okay, your secondary pattern is driver. Yep, that's fine. How to engage them, or no, how to engage how they engage you as a driver. I'm more of a commander than a scientist. Here are my extreme driver motives. Be quick, be smart, be gone. My project, my rules. Enough schmoozing, get back to work. We're competing, I'm winning. Again, a lot of these, we're going to see those in-between traits that are shared. And now if you want to woo the driver in you, then this is what I need to talk to you about or point out about your qualities. Okay, fine. All right.
I think what the change grid can help with is getting to some of these underlying patterns of behavior, like information. What I see, like when we're testing like AI in healthcare, right? Like I'm just seeing like the future of business is like information is going to be the currency, and it's giving people relevant information about themselves in the context of how they're operating so that they can use self-correction. These are the kinds of things I'm seeing happening in business. So you see a lot of corporations, like they're hiring data engineers, and they're literally creating like their own LMS, their own learning management system. So, tools are becoming very specific. So they're trying to move away from some of the general languaging of things.
Yes.
To really get to the heart of how people perform, why they're performing. So I can appreciate they're looking at neuroanthropology.
Yeah.
But as Kathy helps me understand anthropologic tools and the ethnographic studies and these kinds of things, you have to be able to apply that information. It's not just loading
Well,
people up with more information.
and see, and that's my point to it. It started out feeling like this was going to be very robust. It was going to tell us things that the other models aren't telling us. I love the reference to the fact that there's a neurochemical kind of thing involved. I'm not seeing any of that, at least not yet. Now, again, we're halfway through, but they've got 2 more things. So your non-core pattern, okay. How to engage people that are also, now it feels like it's saying like, all right, well, this isn't you, but if someone on your team is this, then this is how you go about engaging them. So this doesn't quite feel as readily applicable as I can. Extreme integrator mottos, it depends. A cigar is never just a cigar. Relationships, my whole life, I've never even heard that phrase before. Okay, non-core pattern, also guardian. You have little in common with the guardian pattern.
Bless you.
Never try to swallow and speak at the same time. So it says you have little in common with the guardian pattern, but you share some characteristics with guardians, in that you are disciplined, traditional, and easily frustrated by people and things that waste your time. Okay. So again, how to lose them, how to engage them, how to woo them, how they make decisions, what their mottos are. Okay.
Get all that in the heat of the moment.
Yeah. And again, I just
Revert to yourself.
all right. So far, I don't know that I've seen anything distinctive. Shared traits. Now, this is the diagram we were just going over. And this is just the diagram. It's not showing us where you would plot. And that's also a strange thing, because usually in any of these kinds of circumplex kind of profiles, it's going to show you a weird little array of shapes that shows you, relatively speaking, that you've got this big chunk of pioneer and this big chunk of driver, but little contributors from on and on. So what I was hoping this background was actually going to evolve into, it doesn't seem to be happening quite yet. As a primary pioneer, you should consider the following when interacting with other business chemistry types. So do this and don't do that. So that's just a rearrangement of the stuff that they were saying up here about how to engage them, how to lose them. So engaging them is, how do I go about in a meeting with, how do I explore possibilities? Yeah, okay. So to me, this is all there. Yep. Yeah. Kathy just says, hopefully we will sort this out. Actually, I just think that we have a lot more to contribute to them than I think they're actually contributing to our.
How does Chris say like this is currently being utilized in business? Like, what are they using it
Oh, exactly.
for? Or with
Said that.
whom?
Yeah, it seems like they're using it for figuring out who's on their senior teams and how the senior team members are working along together. So it's almost more of a business focused team building kind of thing. Now,
Okay.
let me just go a little bit further, because that's it. Now they're saying, here's 20 questions tool, developing a hunch, there's a blog, and that's it. That's the entire report.
Wow.
Now, if their goal is to sell a training course that goes along with this, they might get into some other things. But to Linda's question initially, no, they don't talk at all about the other 3 major areas of the change grid. And here, I don't think they're telling me all that much about me. I mean, yeah, they told me I'm a pioneer driver combo. Why do I think I already knew that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or whoever this person happens to be. So yeah. Okay. Anyone else got some comments, insights, suggestions, thoughts? Impressed? Not so much? Perplexed? Maybe?
It was interesting to see the last half hour.
Yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, it was interesting, but yeah. Brian, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. I don't know that I got anything from it per se. I just hope it's, I think there's a lot of uh, fads and trends kinds of things, but it doesn't offer any information. And what people are needing in today's time is more implementation science. So they need to understand how to implement all of this. We
Right.
don't live in a time where there's a dearth of information. In fact, we have too much of it.
Well, there's plenty of models. It's not like the world needed another model of human behavior. But to your point, we say that pretty much all psychometric tools end in the same place. You guys know where that place is? It ends in a place where there's a question, 2 words. So at the end of a psychometric experience, you go like, oh, this is all very interesting. So now what? Now what? And now what has to either be answered by some behavioral things we could do. So for example, I could go to the back half of this and I could say, where are we at? I'm sorry for getting seasick. So these could each be plottable activities. So if how do I get along better with pioneers? How would I get along better with other guardians? How would I get along better with other drivers? How would I get along with other integrators? How do I get myself to do these things? How do I get myself to stop doing these things? So how can I resonate with their main statement? So I could craft an activity list just based on what I'm looking at here. And that would be an interesting little experiment, but again, it's too general. I believe that your business chemistry changes based on the situation you happen to be in.
Right. That's why you need a baseline. You need to form a baseline and then continue to develop, because now you're putting yourself in a situation where you're facilitating continuous process improvement.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do that without a baseline, and that you can say, oh yeah, we've grown from here to here. Now we can grow from here to here based on organizational goals, based on the larger context of where we are in the space, all these different kinds of things. I don't know how you do that from just these generalities. It seems
Yeah. And again, if we're saying like this is a team, I would say I could also start by looking at what the scope of work is that this team is trying to accomplish, or this leadership, well, it's still a team, leadership team is trying to accomplish. I could look at whatever those are. I could look at whatever their KPIs happen to be. I could create an activity list there and then see where they land on the change grid. And then I can see doing this and saying like, those are the tested as pioneers. You'll probably do a very good job of managing the following issues that the change grid revealed. Where this set of issues, we really need more of that driver energy or the integrator energy. So I can kind of see how I could assign the workload of the team a little bit more effectively if I knew what someone's test results were. I could also say this particular task is best done by this particular energy. So whether you have it or not, you should all be able to behave in the ways that that particular situation needs someone to behave. Whether that is in type for you or out of type for you, we need a team of people who can easily substitute for one another, step up as the situation needs to be stepped up into, etc.
Yeah,
I wonder if this, I've seen that what you just put in the thing, Tim. So based on that, I'm wondering if this used as like a marketing tool to, kind of like the Score app, where they use these questions to kind of facilitate the next step in a conversation. Because I'm reading what Tim put in the chats there, and they say, have you ever pondered what makes people click or clash? Why some groups excel, others fumble, how leaders can make or break team potential. Business chemistry can provide the answers.
Yep. And so now it wants me to sign in. I wonder if that's because I've already.
Well, see, that would be for taking the assessment, but if you click on the menu in the upper right, and and then go down and choose, well, I went to learn more about business chemistry. It takes you to a page that gives you maybe clearer insight into services and what they're trying to do with the tool.
All right. Well,
Okay.
I would hope they're trying to do, more than what we're looking at. But because I just have to say, if this is my whole result, I feel like there's still a tremendous amount of work to do. So thank you for the awareness. But now what? Now what? Now what? Now what?
Yeah.
So they want to facilitate this based on extensive, okay, that's a repeat. Our premium facilitated sessions can do all these kinds of things, determine the type, understand others, I get that, explore your team, adapt my style, and then creating fun and memorable experiences that engage in active learning. Okay, this is all pretty fine, but we still aren't talking about specific activities, specific situations. And is it not possible for me to be a pioneer as far as their test is concerned and still be in apathy? Is it possible for, while I might be a driver, I might be so far upgraded because other things are going on, or yeah, I might be a driver energy, but aspects A, B, and C of this plan put me extremely far upgraded.
So
So,
for me, to your question, I'm thinking about my HR hat, and when we write job descriptions and we define what we in this conversation call activity lists, but there we call it the duties and responsibilities.
yep.
But each of those duties and responsibilities / activities carry along with them the appropriate competency or skill level that's required to
Yeah.
perform the task. So that if there is an issue with someone lacking in performance, then you can understand where you could potentially go if you understand, well, what are the competencies required for performing that task or that.
Exactly. Do
With
they
this-
have an ability gap, in which case I could become more of the trainer or whatever? Is it a willingness problem? So again, we could go back to our 4 little root causes of human struggle and failure, and that's telling us basically what we would need to do.
But I think the plus T is that adding into trying to do the development work there is the value of our energy layer,
Yes.
the value of tools like this, where you're understanding those intangibles that you might be able to leverage to try and help someone develop the skills that are necessary to perform the activity.
You are correct. You're correct.
That's
This has to
a
be,
great.
particularly when it says that this is about behavior. Well, ultimately, business is behaviors. What behaviors? What are these specific behaviors? And does this tool tell me, I don't believe that when you fill this out, you are filling this out specifically about Project Marigold, You're talking about your general tendencies. Well, I want to know, how do you feel about Project Marigold and whoever's on that team or whatever? You guys with me? I need something that's far more contextual than general.
Right. Right. Plus, it says chemistry, right? So, a lot of organizations, to Tim's point, is interested in the science of what they call fit.
Yep.
In terms of, do they, are the role, task, and organization and the individual, are they all aligned? That's a fit. That's chemistry.
Yep.
And so if you don't have something to measure that with, and that can help you with some of the intangibles that Tim just discussed, you could be setting yourself up and the individual up.
Right. And I think I would like to remind the audience as well, if I was teaching this, that sometimes things in chemistry labs blow up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So sometimes things in a chemistry lab, if you mix them together, produce poisonous gas. So you have to really kind of look a lot more about the interplay of this. And so again, I can't judge whatever their training program happens to be, but just like any other quadrant-based personality typing system, we can certainly talk about, how do P's get along with G's? where are they on board? Where are they off board? How do G's get along with D's? You know, so all this kind of cross-referencing and be developing enough behavioral and communication flexibility to get the most out of everybody. And
So
so,
you're right. I just wrote a short training course on conflict resolution and
mhm.
looking at 6 personality types and leveraging emotional intelligence to
Hmm,
contribute towards resolving conflicts. So I think it's the same.
I do.
Yeah.
You know, look again, all psychometric tools are trying to describe the same thing, a human being. Some of them, like this one, seem to be a bit more focused on whatever aspects of that human behavior or whatever, context they really want to be looking at. But nevertheless, they're all doing the same thing. And so I would say to you that I know of other quadrant-based personality typing systems that are going to give you much more robust data in the report. And so I think that if someone said, should I do business chemistry or should I do DISC?
Hmm.
If you want to make a recommendation between those two?
Don't know enough about the business chemistry piece yet.
Yeah, but right now I'm leaning towards DISC.
With this, yeah.
Yeah, I'm leaning towards DISC.
But you know, it reminds me of this book I was just listening to on audio, Six Thinking Hats by
Oh yeah, that's where we get the colors from.
Yeah.
Edward DeBono.
Yep,
Yes.
Edward DeBono.
Yeah.
Now, you know, there's a sequel to that book as you're reading it.
No, I didn't know about the
Oh.
sequel.
Yeah, the sequel is Six Acting Shoes.
Oh, wow.
And so
Oh.
now when De Bono put that together, he put that together because he believed that we should be teaching children in primary schools how to think more creatively. And the whole point of Six Thinking Hats, as you read it, is it's just talking about 6 different ways you can look at a particular situation. And he encourages people to put on each of those different hats so that they have a full picture of what the situation actually looks like. All right.
Well, what I found interesting that I really enjoyed was he introduced this thought of parallel thinking, where
Mhm.
so that you don't get conflicting activity going on, that we're encouraging people, everyone to think in the same direction or put on the same hat. So,
Yep,
you know,
yep.
we don't want multiple hats going on. We may call for everyone, put on your white hat, and
Yep.
we're just going to move in that direction.
Yep.
And so I was thinking about that in theory and applying it to our energy conversation and saying, well,
Yes.
what if in an attempt to gain resolution or development, if we can encourage folks to activate the same energy, parallel energy.
Right. And when we're doing our program on precision decisions, which again was inspired by Six Thinking Hats, I can even show you in the Merging Brilliance when it entered into our whole kind of understanding. The thing that Six Thinking Hats doesn't talk about is sequencing the way that you use your thoughts. So what we added to Six Thinking Hats was this idea about a proper sequencing of them. We also recognize that each one of those different modes of thinking carries within it a different energy, a different level of productive tension, a different level of drive. And so we can actually plot where on the change grid you will naturally move in to whatever that particular color happens to be. And so that's what we added to it, that sequencing is really important, that if you jumble up the sequence, very bad things can happen to the quality of the decision that you're making. So again, he just says, if you put on all 6 of these, you're going to get a really complete picture. And so develop the flexibility to move from one color to the next, to the next, to the next. All that said, Tim, I'm going to go back 20 plus years now. Okay, even, 20 plus years while we were still living in Michigan. I can tell you that speaking specifically about the colors of the hats created so much trouble in the audience. Talk about pushback, talk about complaints. They didn't like having the white hat being something that seems to be very pure and very logical and very fact-based, and then you come along and say the black hat is very negative, and you have no idea how many times I had to say, we use these labels as black and white, but you do understand that Caucasians aren't white. We're kind of a
Right.
bad shade of beigey pink, and I've never met a black person who is actually black, just
Exactly.
shades of brown. There is no brown step. There is no pink step. Um, and so, you have no idea. Linda can tell you, oh my gosh, you have no idea the
Oh,
can of worms.
I believe you easily.
It was
Yeah.
a mess.
Yeah.
So that's why we said we can keep the colors just so that we can always give credit where credit is due to the model that inspired this. But we are stepping into grave danger when we start talking about colors being directly connected to specific characteristics of behavior. And so that's why we just said, okay, no one needs to worry about that it's white, just know that this is the current situation. And then we're going to move on to the desired situation. Then we're going to look at that. So the whole path of self-discovery, Tim, was something that was ultimately built on further integrations from the initial inspiration of Six Thinking Hats.
That's
Mm.
awesome.
Yeah. So a very good model, and maybe, primarily he did his work in Europe. I don't know if he's still around or what he's doing these days, but that book's from the 1980s. And so, but that might still work on a European audience, because even, a few years ago when I would be going to Europe to do programs for IBM and all that, the things that the audience members would say actually out loud, allow their mouth to say, would never fly in the United States. It was ageist, sexist, racist. You just, whatever it is, you just go like, oh my gosh, they're actually letting their mouths say these things. And so a lot of this stuff might play a lot better with a European audience, but it does not play well with an American audience.
Well, how did people respond to precision decisions and things like that when you did
Oh,
it?
they love the program, just don't talk about the
About
colors having specific characteristics that someone else who associates that color with some other part of their being is going to take issue with or offense to. And so I said, so what? I can't use the green step because I'd be offending Martians. I can't use the red step because Native Americans. I can't use the blue step because this is people suffocating. I don't understand. Or Smurfs, but for whatever reason, and this is 20 plus years ago, it was already being considered to be what I want to say, politically incorrect. And today, I think it would be viewed as being blatantly, I don't want to say racist, but where it is.
yeah.
Tim can tell us all. Tim knows the whole situation. So, Tim, am I right?
Yep, absolutely. That's
I
why I
think
said
you,
I understand you easily.
Yeah,
yeah,
gotta be
yeah.
careful. Gotta be
You would
careful.
have to use your words carefully because I remember when I was introduced to it, the words that you used, it made sense to me. You said logical negative assessment,
Yeah,
and I associated black then like things that you don't see readily,
right.
especially
Well,
at
yeah,
night, right? You
and
got to
that's
turn
what
the
I would.
light on.
That's exactly what I would say. It's kind of like I want you to view the black step as being the step that has the courage to turn on the light and see what's really there. And so, and then at a certain point, I just went like, I'm so focused on word sensitivities that I'm missing the point of the lesson.
Mm,
And so let's just get rid of the colors altogether and instead use the words that describe
mhm.
what these steps are really all about. Otherwise, you would hear people who were learning Six Thinking Hats, they would be frequently saying to one another, "Oh, don't worry about them. They're just red. Oh, they're just black. They're white. They're green. They're yellow. They're whatever." You know, I was raised that if anybody ever referred to a guy as being yellow, them's fighting words. So, right, I don't know culture if that works for you, Brian, but yellow
Yeah,
is the color associated with a coward.
yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, again, sensitivities are what they are. We have to have enough behavioral flexibility to modify as necessary so that our audiences can be as comfortable and ultimately as receptive as we would certainly like them all to be. So, great
Interesting.
material in 6 thinking hats. Be careful with the colors. There you go. At least the shoes go along better, but I think even the shoes have colors. But there's like a loafer, and then there's there's like a racing shoe kind of a thing. So it's all about, now that you've had these thoughts, let's look at the actions. So see if you can find a copy of 6 Acting Shoes.
Interesting. You have
Yeah.
to find it. He passed away in 2021, so I have to
Yeah, I
find
didn't
that.
think he was around because I imagine when he was in his heyday in the 80s, he was already got to be, I would imagine, in his 30s, 40s, 50s. I don't know. But he'd already had a very robust career. So, now add 40 years to that, 35, 40 years to that. And I wouldn't be at all surprised to find out he has moved on to the great white fluffy cloud in the sky. So-
Right, right. Awesome. Well, thank you. I have to find that 6 Acting Shoes. That's interesting.
It's one of those things where the initial book was really, really good. And so they decided to come out with a sequel, and the sequel just never got the exposure, the play, the whatever that perhaps it deserves. But
Mm,
nevertheless, it was written 6 Acting Shoes.
excellent.
Okay, anyway, that's it for now. We will move on to a different subject come Thursday, and I'm going to make sure I get this routed over to Chris, since this was really about it. Now I want to know what he's paying to be certified. Okay, all right. Thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk again soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Ready?
Bye. Bye for now.